replaced by the longer and therefore slower fibers. And as they are used up, they in turn are replaced by larger amounts of the even longer and even slower fibers. So it's like a relay race. The fastest runner starts first. There's a very small amount of that, a larger amount of the next one, a larger amount of the next one, and the largest component is resistant starch, which you get from sources like green banana. And if you were to use just that, the fermentation wouldn't start until you were probably 2/3 of the way through the barrel. So you can't use it on its own. But it's very, very valuable because it continues the process all the way through to the end of the large bowel. And that is, of course, the area which is most vulnerable. So in this way, we change the microbiome throughout the entire length of the colon. And when people do that, what they notice is that the symptoms of IBS and then IBD start to fade away.
And tell me, Paul, is there an age group that, and I'm going to just pick an age here, okay? Let's say if you're 4 and above, what age group would you recommend that Xenobiotics could be used by?
Well, I mean, there is no age limit. You see, we used to eat a diet before the industrialization of the food chain. We used to eat a diet which contained significant amounts of these prebiotic fibers anyway. I mean, your best food sources of these types of prebiotic fiber are pulses, peas, beans, lentils, foods like that. And we used to eat lots of these kinds of foods. So it's not as if we're introducing something new into the diet that we've never come across before. These are foods we always used to eat. We're just restoring normality. We're putting back into the diet what the food industry took out. The fact that the food industry has taken so much out of our diet is the reason why the chronic degenerative diseases have become so much more common and why we see them occurring in younger and younger age groups. I mean, the food industries are now killing more people than the tobacco industry. Yeah. So all we're doing, we're not putting anything new into the diet. We're simply putting back with our products into the diet what always used to be there and what needs to be there.
And I was quite fascinated when I was listening to you on a national radio show the other day here in Australia, with a couple of million followers, and they were fascinated that you said, if you want to lose some weight, just go to your cupboard and start removing all the omega-6 products that are in there. That's how you can lose weight. Your fridge is the problem.
Well, I think what I actually said, Rob, was that you should...
I knew you'd have the right words.
You should be cutting down on your intake of ultra-processed foods, because these ultra-processed foods tend to be very light on nutrients and very heavy on the calories. And they also tend to be very high in omega-6s. You're right there. But I'm not saying specifically throw out all the omega-6 foods, but cut down on the ultra-processed foods.
Fantastic. Hey, and 4 key things. I was talking to another scientist the other day, and literally he's talking about there's 4 key things that we're addressing as a company. Is number 1, okay, the carb industry. We want to attack that head on. The ratio of 6:3, which we know we are without a problem. There is a major issue with lack of vitamin D3 in your diet right now, and the metabolic syndrome that's out there. So those 4 key things is the next generation of where we're addressing our products, and that we will be certainly attacking with science.
Okay, there's a lot of points there. Let me respond to some of them. Vitamin D3, yeah, there are 1 or 2 food sources of vitamin D, but it's not really a vitamin because we can make it in our own bodies, and the key, of course, is sunlight. Now, I know that in Australia, you've been subject to a lot of government campaigning telling you to, what is it, slip, slap, slop, or whatever the hell it is. Stay out of the sun. And, I think a lot of that is misguided. And a lot of it started from some work that was done in Scotland by a very well-known dermatologist, Rona McKee, who I respect. And she was seeing a lot of skin cancer in her patients. And she said, well, it's all down to the fact that they're now taking foreign holidays and they're being exposed to sun, and it's all due to the sun. The problem is that she was dealing with the Scottish population and the Celtic configuration, the skin pattern and color, ginger hair, lots of freckles, don't tan. Those people do get into trouble with sunlight. And it now turns out that when you have that configuration, you have a high spontaneous risk of skin cancer anyway, whether you're exposed to sun or not. So I think she drew some of the wrong conclusions. A very an easy mistake to make, and I don't blame her for that at all. But that then became a kind of a moral panic. The governments picked it up and made a complete hash of it, as governments always do. And your government is really bad in this respect, not that ours is much better. And so people became afraid of sunlight. Well, there is some logic to that, but think about it in an evolutionary sense. We were designed, I don't mean in the sense of intelligence design, we evolved as being animals that hunted, gathered. We weren't designed to live indoors. We were designed to be able to deal with sunlight. And if you're eating a diet which contains lots of phytonutrients, such as polyphenols, such as carotenoids, xanthophylls, tocopherols, tocotrienols, guess what? They migrate into the skin, they actually color the skin a little bit, and they protect you from UV-induced damage. Sunlight has become more dangerous to us now because our diet is so depleted. Our skin defenses have been degraded by the ultra-processed diet, as so many other elements in our physiology and our defense systems have been. So sunlight has become more hazardous to us than it used to be. We're simply not as well defended against it, but eat the right diet. And what we've tried to do is to replace all these nutrients in some of our products. Then your skin becomes better able to defend itself from UV. And at that point, you can start to make more D3 in your own skin effectively and safely. So that's an answer to one of your questions.
Thank you. That's great.
Well, you talked about diabetes and metabolic syndrome. Yeah, we know that's a big issue as well. But that isn't so much something that can be treated with supplements. It is really, it doesn't make sense to take a chromium supplement or or vitamin B6 or inositol. I know that those are all interesting, but they're not really the problem. The problem is we're eating a diet which contains far too much digestible carbohydrate. You're pouring glucose into the bloodstream. At the same time, we're physically very inactive. And so our muscles aren't soaking up that glucose. Therefore, it piles up in the bloodstream. Eventually, the insulin gives up, and you move towards metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes. And at that point, your long-term health is definitely compromised. The really logical response to that is to cut down on your carbs, go to a keto diet, in fact, and take more physical exercise. So you're reducing the amount of glucose being poured into the bloodstream, you're improving the body's ability to take that glucose, whatever there is, out of the bloodstream and use it to fuel muscular movement. And at that point, both metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes go into reverse. So that answer there is not so much a supplement, it's a lifestyle change.
Outstanding, Dr. Paul. Look, as we close out, we know that there's 3 key functions that we look after. That's the brain, heart, and the immune system. As a 1-minute closeout or thereabouts, okay, just talk to me about the immune situation, utilizing our products, utilizing the test, and where you see the best track for the next, let's say, 6 months, 12 months as we come out of this current pandemic that we're in.
How much time are you going to give me for it, Rob? I mean, this again, these questions seem very simple, but they're actually very complex.
Let's give it a couple of minutes. I know that people are certainly asking, you know, what can we do now to, you know, to boost our immune system as a protection,
Well, first of all, I think that the data that's now beginning to emerge, and now that the dust is settling, we've seen enough of COVID-19 to get a better idea of what actually it is. Probably the majority of people who get the virus don't even know they have it. There's no symptoms. Of the remaining group, those who have symptoms, in most cases, it's self-resolving. The numbers of people who go towards the cytokine storm and require intensive support are proportionately very, very small. And mortality seems to be focused almost exclusively on those people who are old and have serious comorbidity. I think that the entire lockdown policy has been completely cockeyed. It's been really destructive. Instead of trying to protect everybody, we should have been protecting those people who were the most vulnerable. If we had done that, we wouldn't have had to lock down society. We wouldn't have to take the enormous, staggering economic hit that the world has taken. Once again, the politicians screwed up. They got it completely wrong. And they've inflicted more damage on our economy, on our health, than COVID did. The numbers of people who put off medical treatment because they were scared to go into hospital, the numbers of people who committed suicide, who got into addiction, overdose, all those sorts of, the numbers of deaths caused by government policy exceed the numbers of deaths that are caused by COVID-19. What could we have done? I think what we should have done is to improve herd immunity. And if the governments